Ladies and gentlemen, most people think change starts with action, with waking up earlier, working harder, setting bigger goals. But what if the real switch isn't external at all? What if the most powerful transformation begins in a place no one else can see? In your mind. You can change your habits, your job, your surroundings, even the people around you. But until you flip that invisible switch inside your head, nothing truly sticks. Because mindset isn't just a way of thinking, it's the foundation for how you live, how you lead, and how you respond when life pushes back. It's quiet, it's subtle, and it's often overlooked. But once it shifts, everything else starts to move with it. This isn't about motivation, it's about mental rewiring. And once you understand that your mind is the command center, you stop trying to fix the world around you and start upgrading the world within. There's a pivotal shift that occurs when you stop living on autopilot and start taking control not of your surroundings, your schedule, or your situation, but of your mind. That shift transforms everything. Because mindset is the foundation. It's the filter through which everything flows. Every thought, every decision, every action begins in the mind. And until that changes, nothing else truly sticks. You might adopt new habits, but without a shift in mindset, those habits eventually fall apart. You can set new goals, but if your mindset stays the same, you may aim too low or speak of ambition without action. You can change your job, your relationships, even your financial situation, but without transforming your internal framework, the same patterns will repeat themselves. Different faces, new places, but the same cycles. Mindset is the unseen boundary between your current self and your potential. It's the lens that shapes how you view everything, including yourself. It influences how you interpret setbacks, how you cope with discomfort, how you respond under pressure, and how you define success. Mindset isn't just a way of thinking, it's a way of living. Yet most people never fully understand its power until they hit a wall. That wall might show up as an external obstacle, a loss, a rejection, a failure, or it may be internal, a lingering frustration, a sense of emptiness, a pattern of falling short of what you're capable of achieving. But that wall is there for a reason. It's there to wake you up, to bring you to a single defining question. Are you ready to take ownership of your inner world? Because your mind is not fixed. It's not unchangeable. It's not a permanent trait you're born with. Mindset is a collection of patterns that can be interrupted, a cluster of beliefs that can be examined, a way of thinking that can be upgraded, rewired, and refined. Those who change their lives begin by changing how they think. They stop reacting out of habit. They stop operating on default. They stop replaying the same mental scripts and start creating new ones. Not in an instant, not through a sudden revelation, but by making a conscious decision and backing it with consistent effort. And that decision becomes the turning point. Many people wait for external change before they allow internal change. They think if I had more time, I'd be more disciplined. If I had more support, I'd be more committed. If life calmed down, I'd finally focus. But that's backward, because when you change your mindset, you stop waiting for the world to shift. You shift your world from within. A changed mindset is not just about optimism. It's about inner strength. It's about building mental toughness, emotional balance, and strategic thinking. It's about refusing to let fear shape your choices, about not allowing stress to define who you are. It's about understanding your identity and training your mind to work with you, not against you. And it doesn't happen by accident. It begins when you decide from this moment forward that you're done thinking like the version of yourself that has held you back. You start thinking like the person you're growing into. You start questioning every excuse, every limitation, every outdated belief that kept you from expanding. This is not about becoming someone different. It's about reconnecting with who you truly are before the world taught you to shrink, before fear dictated your path, before doubt became your internal language. It's about returning to your power, not through hype, but through clarity, not through intensity, but through steady action. And it starts now. Not when life is less busy, not when things get easier, now. Because mindset isn't something you can afford to postpone. It's either your strongest asset or your biggest liability. And that's a choice only you can make. The journey begins with awareness, not with theory, not with inspirational quotes, not with temporary motivation. Awareness, because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. You can't break a pattern you've never noticed. You can't improve your thinking if you're in denial about how you're thinking right now. Most people don't even realize they're stuck in mental loops. They're running the same scripts day after day, patterns that shape how they feel, how they act, and what results they get. But it feels familiar, so they assume it's normal, it's all they've ever known. So the first step is to pause, to observe, Pay attention to how you speak to yourself during tough times. Notice the questions you ask when things go wrong. Recognize the stories you repeat when you feel trapped. Most of the time, it's not the external challenge holding you back. It's how your mind processes it, the meaning you assign, the conclusions you draw. And the best part, you don't have to dissect every thought you've ever had. You just need to become aware of the patterns running your life. Because once you see them clearly, you can change them deliberately. But what you do need is the habit of recognizing the mental patterns that hold you back. Because if you don't notice them, you'll keep repeating them. And if you don't interrupt them, they'll quietly steer your life in directions you never intended. It all begins with becoming an observer of your own mind. When you wake up, what's the first thing that occupies your thoughts? When you're overwhelmed, what thoughts emerge first? After a setback, what do you tell yourself? Do you hear, this always happens to me? Or do you hear, this is temporary and I'll figure it out? One of those responses reflects a fixed mindset. The other reflects growth. And this isn't about self-criticism. It's about accuracy. The aim is not to judge yourself for negative thinking. The goal is to become aware of those thoughts as early as possible, because the sooner you catch them, the sooner you can shift them. Every time you shift even one thought, you create a break in your old mindset. You loosen its grip. You start to create room for change. The second step is to challenge your assumptions. Your beliefs shape your mindset, but beliefs are not facts or conclusions, often based on limited moments processed years ago through fear, confusion, or pain. Those moments became internal rules you've been living by. Maybe you believe you lack discipline because of a few past failures. But was it really discipline you lacked, or was it structure? Was it clarity? Was it emotional balance? Maybe you think you're not a natural leader because speaking up in groups is uncomfortable, but is that really true? Or are you holding on to a memory of feeling judged or dismissed? Transformation begins when you stop defending limiting beliefs, when you start questioning the filter through which you've been viewing yourself and your life. Ask yourself, who taught me this was true? When did I decide this? What if this belief no longer serves me? These questions don't just bring insight, they spark movement. Because once a belief is questioned, its hold weakens. And when certainty breaks, possibility enters. And possibility is where a new mindset begins, not one based on fear or protection, but one based on power, on ownership. A mindset that understands nothing is permanently fixed unless you choose to keep it that way. Ownership is the third step, because awareness and insight mean little unless you claim full responsibility for your mental patterns. You can't outsource this. You can't pass it off to someone else. You can't keep blaming others for the way you think. It's your mind, which means it's also your responsibility to change it. Ownership isn't about guilt, it's about empowerment. When you take ownership of your mindset, you stop waiting for people to change, for life to ease up, for things to fall into place. You realize, I choose the frame, I shape the story, I decide what to focus on, believe in, and act on. And from that place, you begin to move differently. You manage your attention like it matters. You stop pouring energy into distraction. You stop reinforcing outdated identities. And instead, you redirect that energy toward clarity, toward consistent action, toward meaningful progress. But that redirection doesn't happen on its own. It has to be trained. And that brings us to the fourth piece, mental conditioning. If you want to develop a new mindset, it requires daily effort, just like training a muscle, learning a new skill, or preparing for a performance. A strong mind isn't built accidentally, it's shaped with intention. Mental conditioning is about repeating powerful inputs deliberately. It's about choosing the kind of mindset you want and nurturing it every day. That includes being selective about what you expose yourself to. It means creating an environment that supports growth. It means treating gratitude as a daily practice, not just a concept. It also means understanding your emotional triggers. It's about learning how to respond, not react. It's about building systems that help you stay in alignment even when life feels chaotic. When uncertainty hits, you don't wait for confidence, you train it. When your path is unclear, you don't wait for clarity, you create it. When life gets tough, you don't wait to become resilient, you build it. One situation at a time, one choice at a time, one repetition at a time. And this is where most people struggle. They begin with motivation, they raise their expectations, but they neglect the discipline, they overlook the structure, they forget that transformation isn't a single breakthrough, it's an ongoing process. And that process demands consistency, not perfection. So you build a daily ritual, nothing overwhelming, nothing complex, just a consistent routine that strengthens your mindset day by day. It might be just 5 minutes. 5 minutes of visualization, 5 minutes spent writing down your standards, 5 minutes reflecting on the person you're becoming and why that truly matters. And while 5 minutes may seem insignificant. Done consistently, it builds strength. It begins to reset your foundation, not to the identity you were given or the one shaped by fear, but to the identity you're choosing, one shaped by purpose, by clarity, by commitment. Once you begin training your mind regularly, a change occurs. It's not loud. It doesn't always feel dramatic. It often shows up in the quiet moments between stimulus and response, in how you speak, how you behave when no one is looking. It's subtle, but it's transformative. This is the shift of identity alignment, because mindset isn't just what you think, it's what you believe about yourself. And the space between who you've been and who you're becoming, that's where the real tension lives. If you don't bridge that gap, you'll constantly feel disconnected. You'll set goals your current self-image quietly resists. You'll try to break patterns, but your identity will pull you back to what feels familiar. So the real question isn't just, can I achieve more? It's, do I believe I'm the kind of person who does? Because if your conscious thoughts say yes, but your sense of self says no, your actions will always reveal the truth. Not in obvious ways, but through hesitation, procrastination, avoidance. That's where people get stuck. They aim higher, but hold on to an outdated self-image. They start to act like the person they want to become. But deep down, they haven't accepted that person yet. And when they slip, which is normal, they interpret it as proof, see, this isn't really me. So they fall back, not because they lack effort, but because their identity hasn't fully caught up. If you want lasting transformation, your identity must evolve with your mindset. You must become the person who no longer negotiates with old habits. You have to reframe how you describe yourself, not just to others, but silently within. Instead of saying, I'm trying to be more disciplined, you say, I am a disciplined person. Not, I want to be more focused, but I operate with clarity. Not, I need to improve, but I lead myself with strength and purpose. You don't say these things to fake it. You say them to claim it. You're signaling to your nervous system, this is who we are now. And you reinforce that message with repetition through your behaviors, your thoughts, your internal dialogue, until it becomes your new baseline. Others might still respond to the older version of you, but eventually your actions speak louder than memories. Eventually your consistency redefines your identity to the world. People stop questioning who you are when you stop questioning it yourself. But before anyone else believes it, you must trust the identity you're stepping into, even if it's still forming, even if you have little evidence, even if results are slow. Because identity is not found, it's built. You become the architect of your identity. And for that, you need imagination. Unfortunately, most people misuse imagination. They use it to feel fear, to mentally rehearse failure, but imagination itself is neutral. Its power depends entirely on how you use it. If you want to change your mindset, you must train your imagination to support your growth. Visualize your future self, not occasionally, but consistently and clearly. Mentally rehearse confidence, practice visualizing resilience. Imagine strength not as fantasy, but as preparation, because your brain doesn't distinguish vividly imagined experiences from real ones. It simply responds to what you feed it. So feed it evidence, give it real experiences, create small wins that reinforce your new story. Start acting in alignment with your future self, even in minor moments, especially in minor moments. Because identity is not shaped in grand events. It's shaped in the decisions you make every day. You choose to wake up on time, not because it's easy, but because that's what your next level self. You keep promises to yourself, not because someone else is watching, but because your self-respect is no longer optional. You complete what you start, not because of motivation, but because that's who you are now. And each time you do, you strengthen your identity. One choice at a time, one action at a time. You reinforce the mindset you're cultivating. Slowly, steadily, it becomes real, not because of a breakthrough, not because of luck, but because you chose to show up for it long enough for the change to lock in. And in that process, you will face resistance, internally and externally. People around you may not immediately understand the changes you're making. They might question your commitment or try to pull you back into familiar roles, habits, and narratives that no longer align with the person you're becoming. That's okay. Transformation of the mind is often misunderstood, sometimes even resisted, not necessarily because others wish to hold you back, but because your growth can make them uncomfortable. Your evolution may unintentionally challenge their sense of stability, prompting them to question their own resistance to change. In moments like these, you must be willing to disappoint others before you disappoint yourself. You have to protect your emerging identity, even when it's still fragile. That means learning to say no to what no longer serves you, not out of frustration, but with clarity and conviction. Because the more consistently you act in alignment with your new mindset, the more resilient it becomes. Eventually, the people around you will either evolve with you or move on. But regardless, your life will begin to mirror your transformation. And in that reflection, you'll recognize something remarkable. The mindset you once dreamed of has become your default. The thought patterns that once felt like a battle have become your foundation. The identity you used to visualize is now the person you wake up as each day. As your mindset strengthens and your identity aligns with it, your response to challenges begins to shift, not because the challenges are smaller, but because you no longer perceive them as threat. Instead, you begin to see every challenge as an opportunity to reinforce who you are becoming, to validate that your transformation is not just a theory, but a lived reality. Most people run from discomfort, interpreting it as failure or misalignment, but discomfort is simply information. Resistance is feedback. Pressure often is growth disguised. A transformed mindset allows you to approach struggle not with fear, but with curiosity and strength. You stop fearing stress and start leveraging it. You stop shrinking under pressure and begin rising through it. This isn't about denying pain or pretending life is easy. It's about no longer letting difficulty define your limits. A growth-centered mindset reframes the question from why is this happening to me to what is this here to teach me? That shift alone returns control to your hands. Your mind wasn't designed to avoid difficulty. It was built to adapt. When you stop resisting adversity, you unlock the power of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reshape itself, evolve, and strengthen through experience. What once triggered you no longer does. What once overwhelmed you becomes manageable, not because the external world has changed, but because you've built the internal structure to handle it. That structure is created through consistent habits, mental, emotional, and behavioral. And if you want to continue growing, you must intentionally protect and refine those habits. Just as you train your body through physical resistance, you train your mind through life's challenges. You build mental resilience by showing up on the days you feel tired, by staying focused when distractions try to take over, and by pushing forward when quitting feels like the easier option. Each time you do, your baseline shifts, and those internal shifts create external momentum. When your mind is strong, your decisions improve. When your decisions improve, your behavior aligns with your values. And when your actions align with your identity, your life begins to reflect your highest standards. But alignment isn't just about behavior, it's about congruence. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need to prove their mindset because they live it. It's present in how they think, how they move, how they treat others, and how they lead themselves. The deeper that congruence becomes, the less mental friction you experience. No more inner battles between what you know is right and what you feel tempted to do. No more constant negotiations with your old self. Just clarity, just flow, just forward progress. And that flow isn't powered by sudden bursts of inspiration, it's powered by consistency. Consistency doesn't come from motivation, but from values. When your values are crystal clear, discipline follows naturally. You're no longer relying on emotional highs to take action. You're operating from identity. And that identity shows itself in the smallest daily choices. How you start your morning, how you react to setbacks, how you speak about yourself when no one else is listening. A strong mindset isn't built through grand dramatic gestures. It's forged through quiet, daily alignment. But even when you're aligned, setbacks will still arise. Even as your mindset strengthens, you will still encounter moments of doubt, periods of failure, and times when everything feels uncertain. That's not a flaw in your transformation, it's part of it. Growth isn't linear, it's a cycle, a rhythm of rising, falling, adjusting, and rising again. What matters most is not whether you fall, but how quickly you recover. And over time, as your mental resilience grows, so does your recovery speed. You stop being crushed by mistakes and start learning from them. Failure no longer feels final, it becomes feedback. You view every setback not as a stopping point, but as another rep in the gym of growth, another opportunity to reinforce your evolving identity. But that kind of growth doesn't happen without space for reflection. Transformation without introspection becomes movement without direction. You need time to pause, to step back, to observe patterns, reassess your strategy, and raise your standards. You must carve out intentional space, not just to do more, but to think more, not just to consume, but to process, not just to act, but to elevate. You start asking deeper questions. Where am I becoming complacent? What am I avoiding? Where have I allowed myself to settle again? Because settling rarely happens in one moment. It's a quiet drift. Tiny compromises repeated until they become your new baseline. The only way to stop the drift is through awareness. Being highly conscious of your trajectory, and deliberate about your direction. That's what true transformation is, not a dramatic breakthrough, but a series of consistent course corrections, a daily recommitment to never reverting to the version of you driven by fear, shaped by excuses, or limited by outdated beliefs. As your evolution continues, a powerful question begins to rise. What else am I capable of? This question doesn't come from ego or comparison. It comes from possibility. It's born from a spark that grows when you realize you've been living beneath your true potential. Because when your identity aligns with your actions and that alignment becomes consistent, confidence is no longer something you chase. It's something you earn through trust in yourself. You know you'll do what you said you would. You know you'll keep showing up. You know you can handle whatever life brings. That self-trust becomes the engine of your performance. It fuels your relationships, your decision-making, and your ability to remain composed under pressure. It gives you the courage to play at a higher level, not because you're fearless, but because your foundation is solid. You've built it, tested it, and proven it. At this point, the focus shifts from internal transformation to external influence. Your mindset stops serving only you. It starts to impact those around you. And not because you preach or persuade, but because you embody what's possible. You become a living standard. People notice. They may not voice it. They may never tell you, but they feel it. Your presence inspires change. Your clarity helps others find their own. Your calmness brings stability. Your commitment raises the bar for those watching. This is how real leadership emerges, not from position or authority, but from alignment, authenticity, and the quiet power of consistency. But influence isn't always easy. As you grow, you hold up a clearer mirror to others. And not everyone wants to see their own reflection. Some will feel challenged. Some will feel threatened. Some will try to pull you back. Not out of resentment, but because your progress shines a light on the parts of themselves they've been avoiding. That's where boundaries become critical. As you elevate, not everyone will come with you. Some will cheer you on, others will resist. And in those moments, your responsibility is not to shrink to fit their comfort. It's to stand firm in your growth, even when it disrupts the status quo. This isn't selfish. It's self-respect. You'll start softening your standards to keep others comfortable. You start compromising the very transformation you work so hard to achieve. Little by little, you allow cracks to form in the foundation you've built. Eventually, you may find yourself living down to someone else's expectations again. That's why protecting your energy is essential, not with walls, but with wisdom. You become intentional with your time, selective with your conversations, and conscious of where your energy flows, because every moment you spend is a moment you can never reclaim. You refuse to give that time to environments that drain you or beliefs that hold you back. But protecting your energy doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means elevating your circle. You seek out people who push you, who challenge you, who won't let you settle. The ones who care more about your potential than your comfort. When you find those people, you invest in them, you grow with them, you build alongside them, you grow together. Because transformation is powerful, but it becomes even more powerful when it's shared. When your environment reflects your mindset, when your community mirrors your energy, and when your conversations shift from problems to progress, from gossip to greatness, that's when momentum truly builds. Momentum thrives in aligned spaces, strong relationships, and shared values. And once those are in place, growth no longer feels like a struggle. It becomes inevitable. You stop doubting whether you'll stay on track because you're surrounded by people who hold the standard alongside you. This is more than accountability, it's culture. And culture will always outperform motivation. Motivation is personal and fleeting, but culture is collective and enduring. When those around you operate at a high level, that level becomes your new normal. You don't need external hype or constant reminders. You just show up, because showing up is what everyone around you does. That's why proximity matters. Transformation becomes easier when you're not doing it alone. When you don't need to explain your ambition, defend your discipline, or justify your focus. So if you're serious about elevating your mindset, take inventory. Who are you listening to? Who are you surrounded by? Are those voices reinforcing your old identity or stretching you into your future? And if that answer makes you uncomfortable, let it. That discomfort is a signal, a prompt for realignment, not out of judgment, but out of self-respect, out of a clear understanding of what your growth now requires. Sustaining transformation doesn't demand perfection. It requires intention. It means designing your life to support your mindset, creating systems, building routines, nurturing relationships, and cultivating environments where growth becomes your default. Eventually, your mindset reaches a point where everything changes, not because your external reality shifts, but because your internal perception does. You stop asking whether success is possible. You stop needing reassurance. You begin living from a place of conviction, rooted in clarity and alignment, grounded in an inner knowing that doesn't waver. At this stage, you don't just think differently, you exist differently. You speak with purpose. You move with certainty. You take action without hesitation, not because you never face doubt, but because you train your mind to meet doubt with strength. You've trained it to lead instead of react, to respond instead of spiral, to question instead of comply. You no longer play the victim in your own story. You've stepped into the role of author, the one who sets the tone, the pace, and the direction. That shift doesn't make life easier, but it makes you stronger. Challenges will still arise, but now you welcome them because every obstacle is an opportunity to practice what you've built. Every setback is a test of your alignment. Every moment of resistance is a call to rise further into who you are. You start to understand that obstacles don't slow you down, they shape you. They bring out resourcefulness, creativity, and levels of commitment you didn't know existed. You become the person who doesn't just handle pressure, you perform under it because you've done the work. You've trained your mind. And when your mindset is unshakable, the world no longer dictates your pace. Other people's opinions no longer hijack your focus. Uncertainty no longer paralyzes you. Why? Because you've already decided who you are. You've already set your standard. And nothing external is more powerful than what you've built internally. That's what it means to be mentally free. To move through life with intention, with self-command, with grounded power. You're no longer distracted by everything that once consumed you. You've eliminated the unnecessary. You've quieted the noise. You've simplified your focus. And in that simplicity, you've discovered peace. Not the peace that comes from avoiding discomfort, but the peace that comes from knowing you can face it, the peace that comes from trusting yourself. Not blindly, but with confidence that has been earned through repetition, resilience, and commitment. This version of you no longer hustles for identity. You're not chasing validation. You don't need approval. You already know who you are. You know what matters. And that clarity simplifies your decisions. It doesn't make life easy, but it makes your direction unmistakably clear. You're no longer stuck in overthinking. You're no longer paralyzed by fear. You trust your values. You trust your process. You trust your vision. That kind of clarity unleashes your capacity. It allows you to scale your time, your energy, and your impact. Why? Because you're no longer wasting energy on distraction, self-doubt, or emotional reactions. You're not leaking power every time life throws a curveball. Instead, you remain grounded, present, and intentional. And as that alignment deepens, you begin to recognize something profound. Your mindset is no longer just about you. It becomes about the people you influence, the example you set, the energy you bring into every room. You begin to feel the responsibility that comes with real leadership because people are paying attention not just to what you say, but to how you live, how you show up when no one else is watching. That kind of influence is never taken, it's earned, it's not imposed, it's modeled, it's not declared, it's demonstrated. You realize that your mindset affects more than your personal growth. It impacts your family, your business, your team, your culture. This isn't a burden, it's purpose. It's the understanding that your thoughts are contagious. Your discipline becomes a reference point for others. Your belief inspires permission, and your resilience becomes someone else's reason to continue. And in that purpose, you find fuel for the days when motivation runs dry, for the moments when it would be easier to step back. You show up anyway, not just for yourself, but for those who are watching, learning, and growing because you dared to evolve. This mindset is not soft, it's not fragile. It's forged, durable. It's built through pressure, strengthened through repetition, and refined through tension. Each time you live in alignment with it, it becomes sharper, your anchor, your compass, your edge. So you protect it. You invest in it. You take responsibility for nurturing it. You don't leave it to chance. You keep doing the internal work. You revisit your vision. You evolve your standards. You challenge your assumptions. You expand your capacity, not because you're chasing perfection, but because you're honoring your potential, because with each level of growth comes deeper peace, greater influence, and expanded freedom. You've done the hard part. You've questioned your old beliefs. You've observed how thoughts influence behavior. You've felt the identity shift. You've faced resistance and built new patterns. Now you're standing in the aftermath of that transformation, not because everything is ideal, not because every fear is gone, but because you finally understand where true strength comes from. It doesn't come from a lack of fear. It comes from moving forward in spite of it. You've learned that power doesn't exist in a world without challenge. It lives in your ability to respond to those challenges with composure, with conviction, with clarity. You've stopped waiting for the world to adjust to you. You've stopped compromising your potential. You no longer ask for permission to be who you are. You choose it. You show up now as someone who doesn't just talk about change, but embodies it. That decision, that consistency changes everything. Not overnight, but through thousands of small moments. It shows up in the conversations you walk away from, the boundaries you set, the expectations you now hold, the habits that once felt like a battle and now feel like second nature. That voice in your head that once echoed doubt now confirms your truth. And this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new chapter, a new mindset, a new rhythm, a new way of living. One no longer guided by pressure or fear, but by purpose and personal power. From here on out, you're not waiting, you're building. You're not seeking approval. You're standing in certainty. You're not trying to earn your worth. You're owning it fully, daily, without compromise. No, it won't always be easy, but ease was never the goal. Growth was. Expansion was. Becoming someone you can trust, someone who leads themselves with integrity so they can lead others with authenticity. That was the goal. And so you keep going, not because you're lacking, but because there's more inside you to unlock. You refine, not because you're unworthy, but because you know what you're capable of. And in that process, you become someone others can rely on. Someone who brings presence, not noise, strength, not ego, intention, not chaos. A person who walks into a room and elevates the atmosphere without saying a word. Because your presence speaks, your habits speak, your mindset speaks. You've transformed your mind, and in doing so, you've transformed your trajectory, your perspective, your capacity, your potential. And from this place, there's no turning back. Not because you can't, but because you won't. That former version of you, the one driven by fear, held back by doubt, stuck in hesitation, no longer leads. You do. You choose, you act, you move, you rise. Not someday, not when it's convenient, now. The most powerful changes in life don't come with noise or fanfare. They begin with a quiet decision to think differently. That's the invisible switch. It's not something anyone else can flip for you. It's the moment you stop living on default and start living by design. When you realize that the real battle was never with your habits, your schedule, or your circumstances, but with the lens you've been looking through all along, flip that switch and everything changes. Your energy shifts, your direction sharpens, and the world around you starts to reflect the power within. It isn't just mindset, it's the foundation for everything you're capable of becoming. And the moment you activate it, your life stops reacting and starts evolving.